Over the weekend, Donald Trump held his second 2022 rally. These rallies now are very clearly 2022 focused, other than still being focused on the 2020 election, which Donald Trump continues to claim falsely that he won. But the rallies are getting far more dangerous, far more insidious and corrosive. They're now actually starting to sort of tease the idea of more riots in the future if Trump doesn't get what he wants. Trump also dangling pardons for the January 6, 2021 rioters at this rally. And the dangerous part is, I don't want to say it's not. The dangerous part is partially that the rally exists and the things that Donald Trump says. But it's hugely that there's a crowd of people who go there, thousands of people who want to hear this stuff. Now, we had two people on the ground at the rally. They filmed some very disturbing interviews, including one individual who admitted that he was in the Capitol on January 6th. And we, of course, will be turning that over to law enforcement. We'll have those videos for you tomorrow. We had Luke Beasley and Josh Pitt on the ground. For today, we're going to look at what the rally actually consisted of. Now, of course, the framing of the rally is always a lie. In this case, it was that there were 85,000 people at the rally. There were not 85,000 people there. There were thousands, though. And that already should concern all of us. And in particular, some of the claims Donald Trump made are particularly authoritarian and fascistic. You know, a principle of authoritarians is they don't respect the law. They use the law as a tool when they can use it for their personal gain. But when the law is an obstacle to their personal gain, they say they will go around the law. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did. Now, before we even get to that, Trump really struggling through this one, the teleprompter reading, losing his place, getting confused, just a couple examples to set the stage for, you know, again, in this case, Trump's right eye swollen, almost completely shut. And he looked confused by what was on the prompter. Here's just one example.
Dollars. They censor, cancel, and persecute ordinary citizens for speaking the truth while they drown your endless torment of, what they do. They have an endless list of propaganda and propaganda methods.
So a lot of that during the entire rally. Here's Trump referring to the country of Mexico.
The biggest beneficiaries. It's such a good deal that Mexico and Canada, you saw that Mexico and Canada want to get out of it.
And then lastly, Donald Trump also looking extremely confused, talking about the sinister faces of corruption, lawless.
This is incredible. But they're sinister faces of corruption, lawless.
Yeah. Just losing his place frequently, but let's get to the substance. Maybe the craziest part of this is that Donald Trump says if he is reelected, he may pardon people, and he is threatening unrest. Let's start there. Trump actually threatening more riots.
If these radical, vicious, racist prosecutors do anything wrong or illegal, I hope we are going to have in this country the biggest protest we have ever had in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Atlanta, and elsewhere, because our country and our elections are corrupt.
So he's saying there, if the prosecution of the Trump rioters continues in a way I will say is unfair, which he's already doing, then we need to do more of these so-called biggest protests. And at this point, everybody knows what that means. Everybody understands that he's not talking about peaceful protests. He's talking about more riots. And maybe even more perniciously, Trump says if he's reelected, he's going to look at pardons for the people who did the rioting.
So many people have been asking me about it. If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly.
Now, that is not due process and the rule of law. That is, politically, these people are on my side, so we're going to come in and give them pardons, even though I don't really know anything about their individual cases. And the important thing here is, consider how jarring this is in comparison to the original story, that it wasn't even really Trumpists that were there. It was Antifa and Black Lives Matter. The first story was, it wasn't Trumpists. It was Antifa dressed as Trumpists. It was Black Lives Matter dressed as Trumpists. There were some peaceful Trump supporters, maybe, but they certainly didn't do anything wrong. Then they shifted into, it was a false flag done by the FBI. Ray Epps, and it was Tucker pushed this story. Then for a little while, it was, I guess, the FBI and Antifa. Now it was Trumpists all of a sudden, I guess, but Trump will pardon them because they're not getting a fair shake. They're not being treated fairly. So I guess it wasn't Antifa, or more realistically, it no longer matters to the story because now the new one is elect me and I will pardon these people. Now, many of you probably would think if I told you Trump bragged about his dementia test again, you'd say, but David, it's almost February of 2022. Didn't he take that test like in the middle of 2020? He's not, you would be right. He's still bragging about the dementia test. Take a look at this.
You know, they were getting a little nasty. They didn't like that we were doing so well. So they said, maybe this guy's not with it. And I said, Ronnie, can I take some kind of a test? Is there something like, you can, sir, but it's very hard.
Now, the number of times Trump says sir during a story is directly proportional to it's inversely proportional to the truth of the story. So the more he says sir, the more untrue the story is. We figured that out. And there's a lot of sirs here.
I said, what's hard? Well, the first questions are easy, but then it gets harder and harder. When you get to question number 30, it's pretty hard, sir. I said, well, would anyone know if I did badly, right? He said, well, you know, it is Walter Reed. A lot of people see what's happening. I better do well.
Even that's interesting because basically what Trump's saying is, why don't I take it? And if I don't do well, we just don't release it.
He said, what do you think? I said, I don't know. I did pretty well in my life. Let's take it. And I took this cognitive test.
Now, it's really, again, it's important. Trump says, I did well in my life, so let's do a cognitive test. The test, it's the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's just meant to screen for serious dementia. Whether you did well in school or not doesn't actually have a bearing on whether you are now suffering from a medical condition. He still doesn't get it.
And as Ronnie said, I got every single question right. He said I aced it. And you know, from that point on, they didn't talk. They found other things. Then they said, he wants to be a dictator. He wants to be. They went on to other things. But I think Biden should do the same thing, Ronnie. Would you administer the test, please? It would solve so many problems. I have a feeling he won't be doing it anytime soon. Do you agree? But seriously, Ronnie Jackson.
So it's still a topic. A former president bragging about how he passed the dementia test. Then Donald Trump complained that prosecutors are out there to get Trump unfairly. This causes the crowd to chant, lock her up about Hillary. But how jarring is it that Trump's saying, there's prosecutorial misconduct against me, and meanwhile the crowd is chanting to lock up Hillary, who hasn't even been charged with a crime? I thought he was about due process. I guess not.
Local prosecutors in New York and other locations who horribly campaigned for office on, we're going to get Trump. This is how they campaign. We're going to get Trump. They know nothing about me. We're going to get him. Then got elected and are working overtime to fulfill their campaign promises. They've subpoenaed more than...
It's really something. I mean, he says these prosecutors aren't behaving correctly. Everything needs to be done the right way, yet lock up Hillary, who's not even been accused, never mind charged, of any crime. Trump doing his supply chain stuff, of course.
Can you believe what's happening? You can't get anything. The shelves are empty. I did a book. They can't publish it anymore. They can't get the paper, the glue, the ink. Go out and buy it. You'll like it.
Every opportunity to promote his book is an opportunity Trump takes. And then lastly, maybe the one bit of truth from the rally, Trump says when Republicans retake Congress, they will investigate the Biden family. That he's probably telling the truth about. I do believe they will do that.
And Biden has the real scandals, and rest assured, when Republicans retake Congress, the Biden corruption will be investigated and exposed by Congress. But we no longer have a free and fair press. If we did, all of this would end. It would.
Yeah. I think that's the one piece I think he's telling the truth about. As I've said before, I believe if Republicans win in November, they will investigate Biden. They will investigate Biden's family. They may even impeach Joe Biden. Won't convict in the Senate, but they may even impeach Joe Biden. So an extraordinarily corrosive rally, and these are going to continue. He is going to play a role in 2022. Later in the show, I'll tell you about, or tomorrow rather, new polling is not so good for Trump among the Republican Party, but it's certainly not stopping the rallies. As many of you know, I don't play games with my investments like timing markets, finding hot stocks, meme plays, particularly in environments like the one we're experiencing right now. For me, it's asset allocation and time in the market. That's why our sponsor, Masterworks.io, is so interesting. Instead of limiting investment in fine art to the richest 1%, Masterworks allows everyone to invest in world-renowned paintings like Picasso, Monet, Banksy, and others. Art is an asset class, and it's outpaced the S&P 500 from 1995 to 2021 and has almost no correlation to the stock market. And Masterworks is the first company to offer paintings filed with the SEC as public offerings. Over 300,000 investors have already signed up. In fact, one of their latest offerings by Banksy sold out in under 3 hours. Use my link under this video to skip their wait list and start investing today.